Welcome into the Odds and Autos podcast. Matt Prehm, Erik, Skopil on the show. Today's kind of a recruiting ranking update, celebration, bonanza, whatever we want to call it. Across 247 Sports, we've released an updated look at the 2025 recruiting class. There's been a lot of movers and shakers in the class. Oregon's got a top 10 class right now. Probably a top 5 class once the updated rankings kind of cycle through the process and run through the system of rankings, and it gets updated there, which will probably be out by the time you listen to this podcast. But safe to say they're a top 10 class. More than likely, they're still going to be in the top 5. And they've got 15 verbal commitments from the 2025 recruiting class. And there's been a lot of movers and shakers. There's only 3 players committed in this class that are not top 247 players. I just thought of this, Erik. I wish we'd talked about it before. I don't know the fewest number of players committed in a class that are not in the top 247 for Oregon. Obviously,
this has to be it.
Yeah, obviously, this is Oregon's class is incomplete, and we could see more guys get added. But you look at the list, and you look at the number of guys, and this has to feel like the fewest number. Even if they add 2 or 3 or 4 more guys, it could potentially be the fewest number of guys not inside the top 247 by 247 Sports. Real quick, let's discuss the guys that dropped first. There were 3 of them that we would consider drops. Like, there's going to be guys like Dorian Brew technically dropped from 61 to 62, but that's in our industry, in our rankings, that's not due to Brew having a bad spring and dropping 1 spot. It's literally a guy from below him jumping up a spot. And, going from 93rd to 61st. And that happens all the time. That happened for Oregon. So guys like Dorian Brew, Desan Prehm didn't move at all. We saw Zaire Addison drop 2 spots, 140 to 142. Thayer Hill went from 151 to 152. So, there's going to be about half the class that kind of just basically stayed right where they're at. But then there's about 3 guys. Nasir Wyatt, he dropped from 95 to 126 overall. Jordon Davison dropped from 199 to 227 overall. And then Akili Smith, who had the biggest fall of everybody, 113 overall to 246. So he just barely made the top 247. Any surprises, any takeaways from those 3? Or it feels kind of like all 3 were trending that direction.
Akili in particular, coming out of the Elite 11 camp, it sounded like just kind of the comments from, Greg Biggins was there, and he kind of had some posts on our message board just about some of the mechanical stuff maybe being a little bit behind or a little bit maybe not quite as fluid as you'd like and that sort of a thing. So I expected he was going to take a bit of a drop. This may be, it's a pretty steep drop. It's 150 places, basically. That's not
a big drop.
Yeah, 133 places. That's pretty significant. That takes you, that's because as we've talked about before, there's tiers to 4 stars, there's tiers to 5 stars. That's moving him from being a kind of higher end 4-star to being kind of a borderline 4-star prospect. So, right. I think that one is the one that feels most significant, in part because he's the quarterback commit this class. Maybe Oregon looks to add a second, but this is a guy you're kind of building around. I know he's been really involved in the recruiting process of other players. I love the physical tools he has. He's so tall and long, but maybe he's more of a project in terms of the passing stuff than we had realized before. And I think the rankings reflect that. I'm guessing Wyatt. And again, we don't have a list of explanations, which I wish. Sometimes we get those sometimes we don't. And sometimes we don't. This is a case where we didn't. I think we'll probably get those maybe when they finalize them in the spring. But Wyatt, I imagine, is just, this guy's really undersized. He's incredible on film. He's one of my favorite high school films from an Oregon commit this cycle. super explosive, but he is like a 6'3", 210, 215-pound athlete. So you're talking about a guy who's kind of maybe a tweener. Maybe makes sense with some of that. And then Davison, I'm thinking, is the opposite, where he has apparently weighed in quite a bit heavier than what he's listed at. I think someone said, what was it, Matt? Like 230? Yeah, I was going to say over 230 pounds, which is maybe an eye opener. So I'm guessing that's kind of the explanation for those three. And maybe we'll get somebody from the rankings panel on here, and I'd be really curious to pick someone's great. Maybe we should have Greg Biggins on here at some point, just to pick his brain, especially on those three guys, because those are all Southern California recruits. That's kind of his region. So I'd be curious to kind of see, but yeah, those were the ones that dropped. And I think there's kind of logical explanations. Akili didn't have a great Elite 11, supposedly. Davison came in a little heavy, and I'm guessing people just think Wyatt maybe is a tweener, because what is he going to be, a 6'3", 240-pound
edge or linebacker? Yeah, it's
kind of a weird weight and size for that position, I think.
And we also should note Cooper Perry, a 4-star receiver who was like just inside the top 247 back in May. He also dropped. He retains his 4-star. He's got a rating of 90 overall, which is a 4-star ranking, but he's no longer inside the top 247. So I think none of these guys are surprising. And for Akili Smith, I think this is why we've heard a lot of smoke, a lot of rumors, and straight up, we've heard prospects talking about taking an official visit out to Oregon this summer or this past spring for Oregon. They were definitely looking around. And I don't think this is like a cause for concern that they're not high on Akili Smith, because I think they are. I think we're seeing the play out where it's like, hey, he's a projected 4-star quarterback, a projected Power 5 starter. We think he's going to be the guy, but there's just enough there that we feel like if we could do it, if we could pull it off, let's bring in 2. Now, will they? I don't know. They're running out of names to bring in, and they're the guys that are available at the position for quarterback in 2025. They're almost, you're probably going to have to flip a guy. Names that come to know, or you look at the offer list, and there's multiple guys that are committed. They're looking at Ty Hawkins from Florida has been rumored there. We also know Husan Longstreet. He's from California, Centennial. He's committed to Texas A&M. He's a 5-star quarterback, but are they really going to be able to flip him there? Don't really know. They're trying. They're looking around, and the options though aren't very good in terms of finding someone better than Akili Smith. So you're more than likely going to be bringing in 2 projects at that position. If you do decide to bring in 2 players, or one for sure project, and we'll see how Akili plays out. But this also could be a sign of kind of, well, you added Dante Moore last year. It's probably not as appealing for a top 5 quarterback at the position to come to Oregon when they know that you've got Dante Moore, you've got a current quarterback committed in Akili Smith, and the other 2 guys, Novosad and Moga, are probably like A+ kind of developmental project quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, I would wonder. It would probably take a really specific situation to make sense. I know Moga is definitely that project guy, and so in theory, if you perceive Akili to be a project, and I don't know what Oregon staff sees him as, and I don't know if they agree or disagree with some of these assessments. Like, I'm guessing they probably think a little more highly of him than our evaluators do. But I would find it hard to believe you'd want to have Moga, if you think Akili's a project, Akili, and then a 3rd project on your roster. You'd want to have somebody who's maybe a little bit more reliable right away. So, I mean, Oregon's in a really great spot at quarterback. I don't think there's any question about it. I loved what we saw from Austin Novosad in the spring game. Dante Moore, I thought, made some really nice plays. I think Oregon is totally fine there. it would be intriguing if they went out and found another quarterback. I just think, to your point, Matt, like you look through it, it probably are going to have to flip somebody. And maybe there's a guy who's open and interested, and Oregon wasn't super high on him before, and now they are. But I don't know. I'm kind of anticipating that they just take Akili unless they really have soured on him a little bit and are like, hey, we really need somebody else. But
which I don't know. I don't think that's the case. Like I'm all in on Oregon keeping him. I'm with you. I think they only end up with one, especially with the roster limitations in terms of numbers and how many guys you could bring in. Like, is it really worth adding a second quarterback that's a project, or not having the space for a 5-star like DJ Pickett, who like
they're gonna make space for DJ Pickett.
Yes, Matt. they're gonna make space for DJ Pickett, but that's maybe an extreme example. But there were a couple guys that had some jumps and a positive direction. Dallas Wilson, Oregon's was previously their highest rated receiver commit. Number 64 in May, he jumped up to 40 in July. Continues to the trend of getting closer and closer to being a 5-star prospect within the 247 Sports rankings. And you know, neither of us are involved in these rankings, but we've done this long enough to know where once you get to a certain threshold or a certain number in the ranking, you kind of get to this point where it's like, hey, if you have a really good senior year and you show up to some of these all-star camps and you perform well, like you could put yourself into the discussion to being a 5-star. And that's what Dallas Wilson's kind of approaching, is when you get to that top 40 level, like sometimes we have 32 5-stars, 33 5-stars in a class. Like you're really close to making it that, you know, to that status. And if he plays it a really strong year in his senior season and then backs it up when all our evaluators are at these all-star camps, like he's got an opportunity.
No question. Love the talent. I've loved his tape since he committed a while ago. You know, we should also mention Decorian Moore stood pat, I think, right? Is he like still 5th? Just wanted to make sure that was stated, since maybe listeners haven't seen the rankings, but I'm not surprised Wilson made a move here. There's been some kind of positive rumblings from his summer. Obviously, where he's at regionally gives our evaluators an advantage in terms of visibility. When you're down in Florida like that, there's a lot. I'm not going to say we don't have evaluators everywhere, but you know, the company's based in Nashville, and a lot of our top evaluators are down in Nashville or the Southeast. So if you show out well, you're going to have more eyes on you. And so a player like him, it makes sense that maybe there's been some movement there. I think now we're talking way down the line here, and it's assuming everybody signs, but I think the marriage of Moore on one side and Wilson at the other on outside at receiver that'd be something pretty spectacular to watch, especially because in 26 Gatlin Bear arrives.
Yes.
So it's like
we forget much about him, who's sitting in the wings for a year and a half.
Right. So yeah, no, I mean, Oregon is set at receiver. I did this stat a couple of days ago for the mailbag Jared and I did on Monday. Junior Adams has got commitments from 3 5-stars and 8 4-stars since arriving, which is, I have to think, the best 3-year run of any assistant coach in recruiting in Oregon history.
I mean, maybe Gary Campbell when it was Tyner, Freeman.
Lake C. Strunk was mixed in there. Maybe they had.
But it's only like 4 guys over 3 years, whereas Junior Adams has, what'd you say?
11 blue chips.
Now, granted, the position takes more every year, but that's the level that we're at. And if you look at the team, you know, if you look at the level where Oregon's running back room was at in that like 23, 24, 25 period of time, like 2 of the best running backs, you know, in modern era of Oregon football in the last 25 years were in that backfield. And Freeman, and I know Tyner's career ended kind of kaput, but that 14 season, he was special. He was really, really good. and then injuries derailed him, and then he ended up somehow at Oregon State. All right, the next guy maybe had one of the biggest jumps we've seen in a while, and I think it's probably one that's going to catch a lot of people's attention. It's Brandon Finney, a cornerback from back east. He went from 220 overall in May, a guy that when he committed, you were kind of like, wow, I like his film. Really, really good. This feels like a guy that maybe could turn into something in a year or so. To now he's inside the top 100. He's 95th overall. And you look at that film, that's like maybe Oregon is going to have him play right away because that film is really, really special. I know you love him. And
I love his film.
The jump is very justifiable.
Yeah, when I saw he was the one that made the big jump, I was like, okay, they're seeing some of the same stuff that I saw. Because when I watched it, I was like, this is just the prototypical corner for modern football. 6'3", long arms, track speed, great recovery, fluid in his hips, just kind of all the stuff you're looking for. And it's interesting because I remember a year ago with Ife Obadegwu, another guy from kind of the same part of the country up there, and the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. kind of corner. Also made a really big surge right at the end. Was kind of a top 150 guy. I think he finished just outside the top 50 or maybe inside the top 50. I can't remember. But part of me thinks like, man, maybe there's something special in that corner up there, and it takes our evaluators a little longer to see it or something. But I'm not surprised at all that he made a jump, maybe just by how much, because like we said earlier, Akili drops 130 spots. Well, Finney goes up about 130 spots. And this was a guy who I think really has a chance to be special, and maybe it's not year one. It probably doesn't have to be year one. Oregon has recruited so well at corner. I mean, even though they're going to lose Jabbar Muhammad and Cam Alexander and Dante Manning and Nico Reed after this year, and maybe Jaleel Florence if he has a great season, they still have, you could run through it. Like I mentioned, Ife Obadegwu, they've got Dakota Fields who just enrolled, Roderick Pleasant. We'll see what happens with Dalen Austin, but they have Seone Lalea. They've still got so much corner talent, but I happen to think this guy is going to be a special player down the line, and it could be sooner than later.
All right, let's dive into some of the targets they're looking at, because this is where things get interesting for Oregon. You look at the 5-star status. There's 32 5-stars in this recruiting class. Oregon is honestly a player at some various level with that hasn't committed or is currently committed elsewhere. Like Naeem offered as the highest rated player that Oregon is still kind of going after. He's committed to Ohio State from the state of Alabama, was on campus. We'll see what happens. Probably not going to flip him, but they're still trying. The most likely candidate that's the highest rated guy that's uncommitted is Jonah Williams. He stayed at number 7, a linebacker from Texas. DJ Pickett, a cornerback from Florida, number 9, stayed at number 9. And then you just keep going down the list here. And there's Michael Terry III, an athlete from Texas. He was at 20. He stayed at 20. Trey McNutt, a safety from Ohio, 23rd in the country previously. He's 23rd. And then, we'll see if they continue to recruit like a Lincoln Cure, a tight end who committed to Kansas State. I think Oregon would like to have 2 tight ends.
Agreed. Yep.
It makes sense for them to keep trying to get him. Maybe if something happens with other players, Jerome Miles, a 5-star from Utah. He recently decommitted from Ole Miss. He's a receiver. Maybe Oregon gets a little heavier involved there. But those are just 5-stars. Like, you add 2 or 3 of those names into the mix, and all of a sudden this class sees a big jump again from a ranking perspective. A couple other guys that have moved. Aaron Dunn's an offensive tackle that Oregon's recruiting. He went from 157 to 131. I had that backwards. He went from 131 to 157. Another name that did move a little bit is Blake Woodby, a cornerback, 127 to 130. They're involved there. We know Juan Gostin, an offensive tackle, went from 165 to 169. So there really wasn't a ton of movement from guys that Oregon's looking at, but that's the good news. The good news is like the high impact vitality of this class is still there. It's still in place where, from a realistic standpoint, Jonah Williams is 1, DJ Pickett is 2, Trey McNutt is 3, Michael Terry is 4. Like, they could still very easily add 4 more 5-stars to this group.
Yeah, I did a story over on DuckTerritory on yesterday, about this. And if they were to add all 4 of those 5-stars, they'd move up to number 2 nationally, and they would have the best class in program history. And if they land 3 of those, and I removed Michael Terry from the list because I think most people think he's maybe the longest shot in that group. Not that Oregon is out of it by any means, but there's been maybe some Texas momentum, I think. If that happens, it's still the number 2 class in the country and the best in program history. So Oregon is sitting in a spot here where I think only DJ Pickett has a commitment announcement schedule. That's July 17th, I believe. Yep. That feels like the one that's most imminent, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Matt, would you be surprised if before the start of fall camp, they've got both, they've got Pickett committed, they've got McNutt, and they've got Williams possibly committed? Like, I wouldn't be, I'm not saying that's going to happen, right, but it feels like that's not that much of a long shot. And if that does take place, you're looking at this class and going like, holy cow, this is what everybody was hoping for when Dan showed up, and now he's doing it.
I think by September 1st, it wouldn't be a surprise if 2 of those 4 are committed. And it wouldn't be a surprise if all 4 of them are. Like you said, like, is that the 100% most likely outcome? No, it's not. Like, you'd be crazy to sit here and say today that they're going to land 4 more 5-stars on top of what they've already landed. But the way things are trending, it's a fair assumption to kind of project out that 1 to 3. And if all the chips fall correctly, then yeah, you've got 4. And it's kind of just a combination. And you look at the groups, and Michael Terry turns into an interesting one, like in terms of Oregon and his fit is like they probably could really use him at tight end, but is he truly like a legit tight end, or is he more of like a hybrid big receiver? And if he's more like wanting to play running back / receiver, like we've heard, does he look at the receiver room and say, like, well, like, I really love Oregon, but they've already got the Carrion Moore, they've already got Dallas Wilson, they've already got Cooper Perry, they've already got Isaiah Mose, they've already added a bunch of guys the previous 2 years. Like, let's just be real here. Am I going to play a ton? Like, I've got a lot of confidence in myself, but I could go to school B and have a clearer path to playing time. I'm still going to have to compete. I'm still going to have to win a job, but there's fewer players around my age than at Oregon. Like, I think that's going to play in here with Michael Terry. We'll see. I think that plays a factor into how well of a recruiter Junior Adams is, how good Oregon's staff is, of, if they really want him, of making it clear that even if they've loaded up at the position, like, we still can find a way to get you on. Like, that's going to be their pitch. Him being able to play tight end, though, could really open the door for Oregon.
I was going to say, could you pitch him on being like kind of a Kenyon Sadiq type thing, where we saw even in the spring game, he was playing in the backfield a little bit. He was playing tight end. He was obviously spread out wide, and maybe that's going to be the pitch, is just watch what we do with Kenyon in 24, and this is what we would do with you in 25 and beyond. I don't know. I mean, it's always interesting when you get these guys who play like 3 or 4 positions in high school and are talented enough to play a lot. I have a hard time, frankly, seeing him as a college running back, because he's like 6'3", 225. Like, honestly, size-wise, he probably should play tight end or receiver. Like, I mean, I just don't see a lot of running backs with that kind of height at this level. But maybe he's the special athlete. He's a 5-star for a reason. Maybe he's the kind of one of the few guys who can do that sort of a thing. But if I'm Oregon, that would be my pitch, is like Will Stein has said, we're going to be creative. We're going to be able to move guys around. Maybe they say, hey, we're going to use Kenyon Sadiq in a certain way. Watch what we're doing with him. This is what you would be doing if you came here, and maybe that'll be enough of a draw. I mean, Oregon has momentum, and they have a lot of momentum in Texas. They've already got a couple of 5-stars from there, and Terry would be, gosh, it just makes me think back to the Willie Lyles thing, like for a decade ago, where Texas got all butthurt because Oregon was getting a bunch of the top recruits from there, and then they called the NCAA and were, hey, these guys are paying players, but now you can.
Now you can, and sorry, we're playing within the rules.
Yeah. Anyway,
second, offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
This could be where we see some movement. Like, I know a lot of people have talked about what's going on at this position group, because the last couple of years they've been able to land some elite talent, and they've got a couple guys at that position, most notably Zaire Addison, who's like an interior, maybe a tackle, probably more interior, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say,
but him and Dimitri Manning are the only two. And it's kind of like they're not going to sign 3 or 4 guys, are they? And who are they going to get? Because a lot of the big names are starting to come off the board. But you look at Aaron Dunn, you look at Juan Gaston. Pronounce Ali's last name for me. You were on the show earlier this week.
Ali Kalavanavalu, I think. It's a tough one. This is like when we had to learn how to pronounce Matteo Uiagalelei's name a couple of years ago. It takes a lot of practice, and unfortunately, his name is one of the more challenging ones in the cycle, I think.
So like Oregon's got some guys in the top 247, and if you're going to find some players that are 4-star, high caliber recruits that are going to commit to Oregon, it's probably 1 or 2 of those 3, and you probably hope that you're able to go out and add both of those guys or 2 of 3 of those guys. And then from there, can you maybe score another like developmental project? And what's I guess really good about Oregon's recruiting right now is a player like Dimitri Manning 5 years ago, or a player like Austin Pay, who's a 3-star offensive tackle that's not committed, but it's really high on the Ducks. Excuse me. Those guys like 5-10 years ago would be celebrated commitments, as they're going to redshirt, or maybe they're going to play limited snaps as a true freshman, and then as a sophomore or a redshirt sophomore, they're going to be like a projected 3-year starter. And a guy like Dimitri Manning, like, I think his potential is through the roof. I think he's a great kid. I've talked to him multiple times, but like, I think just as real of a possibility as him finding his way onto the field early at Oregon is he never sees the field, because Oregon recruits way better players.
Well, and I think what a good encapsulation of that is I think it was, what was the year where suddenly like the entire starting 5 were all redshirt freshmen, and it was like Jake Hansen.
It was 2016.
Yeah, Calvin Throckmorton, all those guys, Shane Lemieux.
Yep.
And it was that none of those guys were, so that was 2016, that was 8 years ago. None of those guys, I think, were top 247 recruits, is my recollection. Maybe one of them was like a low-end 4-star. But as you said, Matt, those were guys where it was like they recruited and they've got good traits. Yeah, maybe they'll become starters, and they were starters by like their second year in the program. You've got a guy like Manning, who I think probably has as good of traits as any of these guys. And as you said, like, especially in the modern era, like he might play at Oregon for 2 years and be in the portal. Or he might develop and be awesome and play earlier than we think. So, yeah, I mean, O-line's interesting. I was looking at it. If you look at the official visit list from June, there's 8 uncommitted prospects. 4 of them are the 5-stars that we just ran through with Pickett and McNutt and Terry and Jonah Williams. And then the other 4 are these offensive line prospects we're talking about. And so it feels like at the moment, in terms of guys who visited that you need to know, like these kind of feel like the names to sort of have in your head of like, okay, they've got the 5-stars and then they've got some offensive linemen. And I'm with you, Matt. I think in a perfect world, they'd love to snag Gaston, Ali. I'm sure to call him Ali because his last name is a tough one. Dunn, and pay. They'd love to snag maybe 2 or 3 of those guys and then call it a day. But we'll see what happens here in the recruiting cycle. I think O-line is a position group that they need to just kind of shore up. And, they've got 2 guys that they've got committed who I'm really high on. And then a couple of prospects are uncommitted that they visited, that they hosted, I should say, last month.
You can go and you can see more on the recruiting rankings. You can see Oregon's recruiting class. We'll have more coverage, more reactions on DuckTerritory.com about the release of the new updated rankings today and shortly the rest of this week. So I highly encourage you guys to do that. I also suggest you guys stay tuned for another good podcast with someone from 247 Sports. We're going to have a guest on to kind of break down some of these guys and some of the other players and current roster from Oregon with Erik and Jared later this week on the show. But until then, you've been listening to the Odds and Audibles podcast.
Talk to you later, folks.